Thanks very much. It's lovely to be here. Nice to see you all this afternoon. I'm Matt, as Naomi said. I'm Environment Programme Officer in the Environment team at the West Midlands Combined Authority. And Katie?
Hi everyone, I'm Katie. I'm the program manager for environment behaviour change, and yeah, good to see all of you here.
Lovely. So, yeah, thanks for coming. We're going to talk you through a lot about our program and the work that we do, and really focusing in on what businesses can do in the region to look at improving your environmental impact, be that related to climate change, climate adaptation, or energy, other issues as well. So we're going to get into it. As Naomi said, please do pop your questions in the chat. We do have a couple of opportunities for you to input via a Mentimeter, which we'll explain when we get there. But in the meantime, we're going to start off really from quite a basic level and look at the big picture of what climate change is, what the threat is that we need to be working to tackle. So the graph you can see on the screen, hopefully it's big enough for everyone, is showing the global average temperature change from 1850 all the way up to 2024. And it doesn't take a scientist to say there's obviously been a clear increase in temperature over that period. Um, Scientists estimate that we're around 1.2, 1.3 degrees in terms of our kind of warming over that period. And that is directly correlated and caused by human induced greenhouse gas emissions. So greenhouse gas emissions are being produced, which is causing the planet to warm. So that's the context which we're in at the moment, and we know that climate change will be impacting us in the UK, will be impacting a lot of the world really, really badly in the near future. And the kind of position we're in is that we need to try and limit warming as much as possible below that 1.5, which is at the top of the graph. That's sort of considered a key point in which we have to try and reduce warming, mainly because that'll unlock a lot of changes which could cause even further greenhouse gas emissions, but also because it's kind of a global target to do so. And the policy picture is complicated, to say the least, and it's certainly developing on a month-by-month basis at the moment, obviously, with things that have changed more recently. But this graph really is a demonstration of where our policy should be and where it needs to be. So I wanted to give you kind of a sample of what the policy goals are related to tackling climate change and where we are failing, I guess, in that respect. So I mentioned 1.5 as our kind of target for keeping climate change to that level, and that's that red line you can see on the bottom of the graph. So that's where we need to be. There are various other scenarios that might happen, but at the moment, what we're looking at with policy is we're around 2.9 degrees of warming. So that's a significantly higher jump up from 1.5. And 2.9 degrees of warming, we don't know what that might look like as in terms of a warming planet, but we do know the impact on the planet could be devastating. And there's a reason it's called the climate emergency. That level of warming is a scary amount. So we need to try and limit that as much as possible. And we know that the impact of that is going to see us impacted in the West Midlands. So we have done some work on looking at some of the vulnerability that we have in the West Midlands, which I'll come on to second. But to give you kind of a sample of the impact of what climate change might have on us in the West Midlands, and specifically in some cases on business, we know that a lot of businesses who are flooded don't reopen. So 40% of businesses after they've been flooded aren't able to reopen. So if there is a vulnerability there, it's really quite a devastating impact. In terms of heat waves and drought, so we're seeing hotter, warmer summers every year, record-breaking temperatures. And in 2020, hot days reduced UK productivity by 5.3 billion, according to the ONS. So that's a significant drop-off in productivity because, as is kind of emphasised throughout the Thrive module, health and well-being is such an important aspect of successful business. So when you've got hot conditions, it's not possible to work in the same way. And obviously wildfires will have an impact as well, maybe less so in the UK at the moment, but Europe has certainly seen the impact of that, and we can expect as the climate gets warmer, we may start to see that in the UK. So an average wildfire season in southern Europe can lead to a yearly production loss of 13 billion and between 13 and 21 billion euros. And research that was produced this year suggested that half of businesses in the UK are already impacted by climate change. When we submit the Mentimeter, it'd be really interesting to hear in the second question maybe a little bit about how you felt the impact of climate change already. What have you done to become more resilient? But I think what we want to emphasise with these slides in particular is that climate change will affect all of us, and we do have to try and think about that temperature graph that we showed and trying to bring the curve down and stop that warming. And we have a collective responsibility to do that in the West Midlands as well. We've done some work in terms of mapping climate change impact on the West Midlands, as in the West Midlands Combined Authority area. I appreciate that some people might be slightly beyond those borders, but really the trends that you can see here can be reflected elsewhere as well. And it's worth noting that some of it is relative. So whereas Solihull is looking quite green in this data, if you were to look at Solihull as an isolated thing, there would be a lot of red and orange as well, just because it's relatively less impacted than other parts of the West Midlands. You can see particularly that the high risk areas, where people are most vulnerable to climate change, are those really urban centres, both in Birmingham, in the Black Country, and a little bit in Coventry as well. So we know that that vulnerability is related to water availability and flooding, heat, urban heat in particular, and also the demographics of the people who live there. So it might be that slightly more deprived communities do have more vulnerability to climate change. And this map is a really good way of demonstrating the reach of climate impacts across the region. And we know that the cost of climate change is going to be significant in terms of our impact in the West Midlands as well. So we did an economic impact assessment of climate change on the economy in the West Midlands, which we can share if anyone's interested in that. And it was macroeconomic analysis, so thinking big picture, and it basically estimated that by 2050, which is not that long away now, we could be looking at economic costs of up to 1.5 to 3% of GVA, gross value added, by the 2050s, which could be as much as 1.5 to 2.9 billion a year. So the impact on the West Midlands economy would be massive. And we do have to think about how we are developing business and working towards decarbonising industries, also in the context of all this as well. So I think hopefully you've got the impression from what I've kind of outlined so far is that we do have a responsibility in the West Midlands to make that difference, to take the lead on some of these issues. Just so we're very clear on what we're talking about, net zero is the total greenhouse gas emissions of an organisation or a city, or in our case, a region, that equal to or less than the emissions it removes from the environment. So that's what it means by net zero. Typically, that will mean a lot of emissions reduction. So that's kind of the primary aspect of it, but it may also include aspects of sort of offsetting or planting trees or looking to take carbon from the atmosphere. So those are kind of aspects of net zero. And as the West Midlands, we have committed to achieving net zero by 2041, which is 9 years earlier than the national target of 2050, which was set by the UK government and is a legal duty as per the 2008 Climate Change Act. So we have that responsibility in the West Midlands, and it's not a strategy that's been created just for the combined authority. It's something that for us all to play a role in. So every business in the region and beyond need to play a role. Every citizen needs to play a role, and kind of we're hoping to take everyone along on that journey. We do have the West Midlands Net Zero Business Pledge, which is an opportunity for you to pledge your commitment to net zero. So if you've not already done that, I know that it has been promoted through the Thrive Network scheme, but if you are interested in pledging, then we can definitely share the details for that too, just to show your commitment as a business. And I think what's important to note is we don't want to be all doom and gloom. There are a lot of opportunities here in this space, and it is a growing economy. So the net zero economy, according to a study that was released last week, grew by I think it was about 24%. So it's growing faster than any other kind of sector at the moment. It's a real opportunity to get in on. So if you have those chances, it's really good. And at the Combined Authority, we are developing some really cool schemes, which will hopefully give businesses the opportunity to help decarbonise. And so, for example, we pulled out a couple of examples here. We've got the Attic Brewery Company, which is a brewery based in Birmingham, based in the Sturchley area. And it's one of more than 2,000 businesses that have been backed by government-funded scheme to help us and firms cut energy usage and fuel bills. So Attic Brewery in particular, they were given a net zero grant, which helped them buy energy efficient beer making equipment and a super efficient boiler, double glazing, so insulating some of their facilities, and improve its lighting as well. And you can see a picture of the Mayor Richard Parker there enjoying a pint of beer. And that scheme is run through Business Growth West Midlands, and I believe there will be future funding for that. So if you're interested in thinking about what energy efficiency measures you could take, there's a free audit system, which is here, flagged here. So the Business Energy Advice Service. So there's a lot of support you can take through the BEES program. They'll give you a free energy assessment, and then they'll sort of give you the opportunity to think, what can I do beyond that? What measures can I take? And like the Attic Brewery or other businesses, you might be able to get some grant funding to improve some of that infrastructure as well. And as I mentioned, we've got the Net Zero Business Pledge, which is an opportunity to pledge your commitment towards net zero and provide and receive, some opportunities for business support as well. In terms of the final opportunity we're going to flag now in this section of the presentation, we also have the West Midlands Resource Reuse Network. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful. And the point of this network is to create a circular economy in the West Midlands. What do we mean by that? We mean a system where we are using waste regularly rather than just throwing it away. So getting rid of that throw out culture and living by the principle that one man's waste might be another man's treasure. So trying to connect up businesses that produce waste and consider where there may be a business where that waste product is actually a really useful product for another business. So if you have any waste products that are expensive or logistically difficult to dispose of, there might be a business out there in the West Midlands that can use your waste product, save you money and save waste as well. So we have that network as a kind of a regional facilitated program to encourage the sharing of waste and resources across the region. So if you're interested in that, we can again share a link to that, but we also have that email there on the screen for you to explore that potential connection. Okay, so we've run through some of the kind of headlines of what the kind of topic is and what we're trying to do to reduce our emissions. And we've given some examples of how businesses can get involved, but we're really keen to find out via this Mentimeter that I referred to, have you implemented any changes to reduce your environment impact so far? So it may be that you haven't, and that's absolutely fine. But what we'd like you to do is to use the Mentimeter. If you type mentimeter.com and then put in that code, you should be able to access our Mentimeter, or you can use the QR code on the screen and it'll give you that question. Have you implemented any changes to reduce your environment impact in your business? And we'll just share the Mentimeter in a second once I've given you the opportunity to get that up. And we'll maybe have a look at some of the examples that people will be doing. Just as you're submitting, hopefully, it's worth bearing in mind that your responses will be seen on the screen. So make sure it's something you're happy to share with the rest of the webinar. That would be great. Let's just see if anyone started to input any of the questions. We've got a couple so far. Someone's not been able to yet. We've got electric vehicles for staff sales, which is fantastic, and eco-friendly products as well. Be interested in find out what that means, but that's really good. EV sales is another fantastic opportunity, and we know that the electric vehicle market has been expanding rapidly in the UK. Got paper free, that's a good one. It's good for thinking how we can reduce our paper and digitize as much as possible. Energy hunts, looking for leaks, that sounds really good. I think in that case, the business energy advice service might be really useful as part of that process to work out what you can do to save energy, where your energy efficiency gaps might be. Thank you to those who've inputted. Give people a chance to see if they've got any more that people want to share. A lot of people decarbonising their car fleet, which is fantastic. Quite a bit around paperless office, which was really good. Got some, plastic-free packaging. Automatic lighting, nice, yeah. Eco-friendly bathroom products, this is great. Thanks everyone for inputting. Definitely seems to be a lot of momentum behind electric vehicles, which is really good. Brilliant. Given another couple of minutes to give people the opportunity to input. Great, okay, well, do keep putting your answers in as you go. Feel free to share those with us. We will be coming back to the Mentimeter shortly in a second. We've got one more there around planning software for energy efficiency, which is brilliant. Local purchasing, recycling and signage about turning lights off. It's all really good stuff. A lot of like behavior change stuff that is kind of hard to implement, but once you get the members of staff on board, recycling, carbon-free electricity being considered. Excellent. This all sounds really good. It's brilliant to hear people are doing so much already. And hopefully this presentation and the sort of advice we'll give you in the Thrive module itself will really be a good starting point to build on this. Fantastic. Implement a cycle to work scheme. Viewed supply chain to ensure local send purchasing. That sounds really good. Excellent. Okay. Thanks everyone for contributing to that. As I said, we will be coming back to the Mentimeter at another point in the presentation, but it's really great to hear that so many people are already thinking about reducing your environmental impact in business. I'm going to pass to Katie now to take on the next section of the presentation.
Thanks, Matt. It's really good to see all your answers in the Mentimeter. And yeah, as Matt said, we'll come back with another question in a little while to hear more from yourselves. But we thought as Thrive was really focused on well-being, mental health well-being of employees, we thought we'd put in a little bit around actually what the impacts are of climate change on people's health and well-being. So, you know, lots of you are taking like really proactive steps to improve well-being across your workforce. But some of the things that we see, we run a environment attitude tracker survey. We run that every 6 months of 1,000 people, and we're starting to see some trends come out of that actually young people tend to be a bit more pessimistic on the outlook of climate change. So you usually think of young people being like really like, optimistic, excited for the future, but through this we see that actually they think that there's no turning back climate change, that we're going to reach a catastrophe and like basically the human race will die out, which is a really glum look to when we think about it. So it's really, yeah, eye-opening for us to start to see that trend. I mean, it's we've only been doing it for the last year, so we've still got a lot of data to gather on that. But there has been quite a lot in the news around eco-anxiety. If any of you have heard of that, of young people feeling that, yeah, there's no hope out there, and that look on the future is quite glum because they're feeling really anxious about all these impacts of climate change that Matt ran through before. So it might be something to be thinking about as you are putting in like mental health policies and how to support staff. That actually, if you did do something positive, which you all seem to be doing quite a lot of things around EVs and paperless, etc., you've just shared in the Mentimeter, that actually seeing that your business is trying to do something positive about tackling climate change could see them feeling more positive about the world and what's around them. So things that we've seen that actually is quite good for people mental health is getting outside and seeing greens, getting into green spaces. So there might be things for you to consider if you're in quite an urban area, which our office, WMC office, is very urbanised in Birmingham city centre. But there's things that we have like green walls around. So even there's some research available that even just seeing the colour green from your hospital window can improve your outlook on your health. So things like that might be something you might consider, is like having like office plants or trees, or even doing like employee wellbeing days, whether you can get out and maybe do tree planting, have some like walks and parks, etc. So you can see in that little graphic there what some of the positives could be of getting people out there. So this is looking at something called care farming, but you can see here some of just getting out in nature, the improvements that felt to people as feeling like more included, feeling of belonging, improving self-esteem and confidence, and feeling like a personal achievement for getting out in nature and doing something quite practical. Because things like tree planting, you know, is something that you do, you see the benefit of, so you get that instant reward from things like that. So it might be something to consider with your workforce as well to help improve their outlook on these things. And some other training, like if this is quite new to you, I mean, a lot of you seem to be doing quite a lot already, but as well as the Thrive module, if you're really wanting to kind of go back to kind of what Matt went through at the start, like what is climate change, what's causing it, what's going on like internationally as well as like in the UK. We have another opportunity for some training called the carbon literacy training. This is certified by the Continual Professional Development Service, so you will get a certificate as well for completing this training. And it is 3 e-learning modules and 1 session via Zoom, so the e-learning module can take your own time, but it very much goes through all of this in a lot more detail about the causes of it, what's happening, impacts on sport, impacts on well-being, and who are the people in our society who are going to be most impacted by climate change. So if you are interested in learning things a bit more in depth, potentially before you go and do some of the actions that we suggest in the Thrive module, I definitely would encourage you to have a look at this and get a certification towards this as well. Thanks, Laura. That's great that you would recommend it. That's really nice to see. So that is available for you to do for free as well. So we'll definitely share the link with you if you want to learn a bit more about that. So in the Thrive module then that's been put together for you, is why would you want to do it? So there are some real benefits as we've hopefully shared with you, not only around like financial benefits that could bring to your organization, but also those feelings of like people feeling a bit more optimistic that they can see that their organization is taking this seriously and they want to do something about it and like improving their outlook on life and their mental well-being. So some of the other things that you might feel like you should, start to consider this is around brand image, and looking that you are, yeah, as I said, like really doing something really positive around this. There is then those targets that we've shared. So we've committed to be net zero by 2041 across the West Midlands. So you, as all of you on this call, can be part of that journey and helping us to achieve that, which would be really brilliant. It might be part of your values that you do look at this seriously and really want to consider it within your organisation, and it's something that you really want to see positively and what opportunities are out there for you. So we've already shared some of those opportunities that Matt shared with the Business Energy Advice Service. There are some grants, things, etc. But also it might be something to market. Depending on what you do as your organisation, it might be a way of marketing some of your products as well as being more eco-friendly, greener, and shows that you are working towards this. There is some research out there as well about young people and looking at what organisations that they want to work for, and there is a trend that they will actually see a drop in salary if they work for an organisation that is actually looking to be more environmentally friendly. So that's definitely something to look out for as well in terms of your workforce, maybe something to put in job descriptions to say that it is something that you want to strive towards as an organisation. So the Thrive module then is looking at different things which some of you, as we know, already considering, such as active travel, reducing your carbon footprint, but also it's really good to see one of you say that you already do this, but looking at ethical procurement. So when we get to the question, it'd be really great for whoever put that in the chat to share what you do when you are looking at your supply chain and with the rest of us, because that's really interesting. But then also looking at what impact you might be having on your local community. So if you've got lots of staff who do travel into work in their cars, is that causing congestion in the local community? Is that having maybe an impact on the air quality of people who live around the area? So there might be things that you could do that then really boost the local community that you're based in. So some of the steps that we have within the module then, so you can see here, so within active travel, one of the things we ask you to consider is an active travel awareness among employees. So there is days like cycle to work day. We have it at the combined authority where if you cycle into work that day, you get a free breakfast, which is really great. But there's definitely days like that that you can and jump on and promote these types of schemes. But you could include like training. There's bikeability training that you can hold for staff so they feel a bit more confident and comfortable with cycling as well. We also ask you to consider your energy usage. So is it a possibility to move to a green energy supplier so you're not using fossil fuels to kind of heat and operate your business, but actually use renewable energy? So that's something that we ask you to consider in the module. In education as well, that we've already shared with you the carbon literacy training, but if you want to share it with all your colleagues so they'll feel more comfortable and confident understanding what the issue is and how they can tackle it, that's a great training course to promote to your colleagues. And then also then to consider, is there some ethical procurement practices that you can put in? And again, it's really great to see that some of you already have things about buying local and supporting local businesses, which is really encouraging. So that's the type of thing that we've asked you to consider in this module as well, and making that commitment to buy locally. Some of you said you don't use plastic packaging, which is great. Some of you've gone like paperless, etc. So they're the type of things that we'd love to see you write in a policy to say, yeah, we're committed towards this. And again, it's a good opportunity to promote this wider as well. So there's lots of marketing opportunities to say that you as a company are trying to be more environmentally friendly, and yeah, saying that these are things that you do, like you're only buying locally, etc. I think it's really great for people to see that that's a commitment that you have as a business. So we're going to go into another Mentimeter now. So it'll be the same link, I believe. So if you go back in, we'll have a new question open to you, which is what are the biggest opportunities or the challenges in reducing your environmental impact? So those of you did share in the last Mentimeter some challenges you have around decarbonising, but what opportunities do you think there is in this space? But are there some things holding you back? And then in the Q&A, perhaps me and Matt can kind of talk these through with you. Some of you could come off mute and share your experiences of the ethical procurement strategy, etc., that you've already put in, so that's great. But we'll open up the Mentimeter and see what people have been able to put in. So yeah, what's your biggest opportunity, or what potentially is your biggest challenge in trying to reduce your environmental impact? And we hope then that going through the Thrive module and some of the actions we've put in might help you to address some of those things. I'll give it a few minutes for people to be able to type in their responses. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cost is always a big barrier, isn't it? Because some of these things are quite an expensive upfront cost. So if you're thinking looking at energy, for example, if you're considering putting solar panels in, that is a big upfront cost for your business, but it does have that return on investment after a while. So if you do think you're going to be in that building for quite a while, it might be something to actually consider. There were some government grant schemes available for putting in chargers. I'm not sure if they're still available, but there might be opportunities in that space to having those electric car chargers on site to encourage people to use EVs. But again, that might put that restriction of landlord restriction someone's just shared as one of the issues if they don't allow that, because you don't own the building. You might have lease restrictions. Um, yeah, as a construction, we struggle with technologies ready available to help achieve. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that potentially this is still quite a new thing. I saw something around heat pumps in the news today about how half of households need to have heat pumps. So rather than having gas boilers, we have heat pumps instead if we're going to reach our 2050 net zero target. But it's still seen as quite a new technology. So maybe people feel a bit distrustful about it, don't want to have that commitment. But then that's exactly the same. Technology is changing all the time, and there's some really great innovations out there that I hope we will see more of as people start to look into these. Um, yeah, shared buildings. Oh, no visible energy uses. That's interesting. So you might be doing some really great things within your space in the office, but you can't see what everyone else is doing. And yeah, impact on profit margins as well potentially could be one, especially if you've got that initial upfront cost of doing some of these net zero measures, and justifying the cost as well is a big one. So I think cost has kind of come out as the biggest one, hasn't it, here? But it said if you are interested, um, the B scheme that we shared earlier could be something, because the audit's free. So if you can get us to come out, complete those energy audits, actually that might be a good justification to put to management to say we've had this audit done for free. There is then this grant opportunity we can apply for to help us, with our energy. That could be something as well that could be of interest. Brilliant. Yeah, so 100% remote, we find it difficult to find a one size fits all to reduce energy usage. Yeah, absolutely. I think we work quite hybridly here at the Combined Authority, but our building is operating 24/7, but also people then working from home. So you've kind of got then the dual issue of people working from home and heating their homes, having more technology, but then also having the office on as well. So that might be an issue for some of you. But yeah, how do you roll that out across the staff, and then you're kind of telling people what they can and can't do in their homes if you're trying to reduce energy usage. So yeah, that's an interesting one to consider. I've not really thought that before. But thanks so much for sharing. Maybe these are some of the questions we can talk through in the Q&A. Um, but I think that's it from us. So I hope we've kind of gone through with you kind of why it's important to be trying to reduce your environmental footprint and trying to reduce your carbon footprint. Showing you a little bit about what you can see within the Thrive modules and some other opportunities like the business energy advice service, carbon literacy training to learn a bit more. But yeah, we're really excited to see you all go through the Thrive module. We're here to support as well as an environment team. If any of you want some additional support or have any additional questions that we can't answer today. But thanks so much for attending the webinar.